I've been with Stella for 3 years. She's always easygoing, never argues. My friends envy me for having such a stable girlfriend. But then, I looked into her past with her ex. They had fights, breakdowns, makeups. She used to be hysterical for him, overjoyed for him. That's when I first thought about breaking up. It really hit me on a rainy day. I was in her car and played a voice message from a female coworker on purpose. "Joshua, no matter how many times you reject me, I won't give up." This woman knew I had a girlfriend and still kept trying. I've rejected her, avoided her, but she just kept going. I hoped Stella would say something, anything. But all she did was giggle and say, "You've got some charm." That was it, no other emotions or words. Felt like it didn't bother her at all. I asked, "Why don't you ever get jealous?" She replied, "Why would I? I trust you." Always so calm and rational. She never gets emotional over me. I asked, "When it comes to me talking with other women, where's your line?" She kept her eyes on the road, no physical cheating, I guess. "So, it's cool if I just like someone else?" She glanced at me, "If you like someone else, just tell me. I'll respect it." Felt like punching cotton. That familiar feeling of helplessness I felt for 3 years. But after seeing those old messages of hers, why couldn't I take it anymore? There was a sudden bump at the back of the car. At least we didn't hit the car in front, no pile up. We got out to check. From the Porsche behind us came a couple arguing loudly. The woman was upset. "It's all your fault for arguing. Now look, we've crashed." The guy shot back, "Why was I arguing with you in the first place? You should know." She yelled, "Enough, Eric. Can't you see people are watching?" He looked over at us. Our eyes met, and Stella suddenly dropped her phone. For someone with steady hands who can handle precise surgeries, she couldn't hold onto a phone. I bent down to pick it up, and it struck me as funny how life could be so coincidental. Just a week ago, I'd seen this guy's face on her phone, and there he was, standing right in front of me, as if reminding me of their unfinished business. And Stella and I were supposed to get married soon. Stella's car is tough, all it got was some paint scratch. Compared to that, the Porsche was badly damaged. The woman apologized. "Sorry, my boyfriend and I were arguing. Didn't see you there. Shall we settle it with insurance?" Stella just waved it off, "No need." The rain started coming down harder as she opened an umbrella, putting me under it, walking me back to the car. The car moved on, and in the rearview mirror, Eric's figure grew smaller and smaller, but the longing in his eyes only got bigger. I could see it. Stella must have seen it too. The rain tapped gently on the car window. I looked over at Stella, hoping to find something on her face, but she kept driving, looking as calm as ever. We stopped at our destination. She said, "We're here." I hesitated, rolled down the window. "I just got in the car here. Stella, I'm supposed to be going home after work, not arriving at work." She just picked me up from my office entrance and somehow drove me back there. She looked surprised, closed the window, and started the car again. As evening fell and traffic thickened, my heart felt as clogged as the road. Without any words between them, I felt like I heard thunder after thunder. Stella and I began from a chance blind date. I went into the wrong room, and she mistook me for her date. We started talking, went from feeling awkward to really hitting it off. We both loved Nolan's movies. Our favorite author was Kawabata Yazunari. Even rare hobbies like fishing we both had. Before we knew it, we talked for an hour. We exchanged contacts. It wasn't until her actual date showed up that we realized we had the wrong person. After that, Stella didn't delete my contact and I kept hers. We ended up on another blind date later on. This time we got it right. We sat together again, and she smiled. "Seems like we've got some fate." I asked her, "Your last date didn't work out?" She countered, "And yours did?" Finding someone who loves Nolan, Kawabata Yazunari, and fishing isn't easy. She laughed. "Want to give it a shot with me?" That light phrase struck deep in my heart, and so began our 3-year relationship. As we passed by the scene of the accident, I saw Eric was still standing there. His girlfriend had left him, standing alone in the rain, like a lone plant swaying in the wind. Stella's hands on the wheel suddenly tensed. She stopped the car next to him. Stella quickly unbuckled her seatbelt, got out with urgency in her steps, and yelled with anger, "Eric, didn't you notice it was pouring? You stood here in the rain for an hour?" Calm as she is, she rarely loses her composure. I pursed my lips, watching her get emotional for another man. Eric kept his head down, his voice hoarse. "Stella, you would never have left me by the roadside like this." In the rearview mirror, I saw Stella's back, soaking wet and trembling. One stayed in place, the other circled back to the starting point. Suddenly, it felt like I was the outsider. Eric got into the car, took the tissue she handed him. Her gaze finally turned to me. "He's a friend. Can we drop him off first? If he's just a friend, why not say hi earlier?" I didn't ask because I think I knew the answer. Passing a herbal shop, she got out for my medicine. Eric spoke up from the back. "I'm her ex-boyfriend." When I didn't reply, he added, "Love really is something others plant, and the next one enjoys the shade." There was a heavy hint of regret in his words. After all, he and Stella had loved each other for 5 years. When it comes to the length of time or the depth of feelings, I'm always on the losing end. Eric has no idea that a week ago he texted Stella late at night, asking to get back together. She's not a drinker, but there she was, sipping half a bottle of red wine on the balcony, a first for her. Her phone doesn't have a password. She's always been so open that I never once doubted her. But for the first time, I peeked at her phone. She told him, "I'm getting married soon." It wasn't because she loved me or stopped loving him. Just a simple, emotionless "I'm getting married soon." I memorized his ID. I dug around and found his other social media accounts. He still holds on to every trace of their time together. They met in college, each other's first love. She gave him custom Lego sets, spending 3 days and nights building them for him. Every year, she wrote him a handwritten love letter. She even named a star after him. She's given me expensive gifts, but each of his gifts came with a thoughtfulness I never received. When he talked to other women, she'd assert her place right there. She wouldn't let him talk to or smile at other women. He'd tease her, saying she was pickled with jealousy, and she'd seize the moment to kiss him. "Does this taste sour to you?" They fought. He'd threatened to leave, but before he could get 3 steps away, she'd hug him tightly from behind, eyes red, saying, "Eric, you're stuck with me for life." They loved intensely and split messily. I feel like a thief, taking pieces of their memories and piecing together a Stella I never knew. Turns out the composed and cool Stella knows how to sweet talk. Turns out the rational and calm Stella can beg not to break up. Turns out the aloof and detached Stella can love someone fiercely. She can be this vibrant, but she never showed me that clumsy side. I turned my head to the window. The rain stopped, but the ground's still wet. Stella walks over, carrying a big bag of Chinese medicine, tall with a cool demeanor, her steps calm and composed. It'd be easier if she were just another blind date. Laying all the cards on the table, she's quite the catch, the one anyone'd pick for marriage. But amidst all the practicalities, I crave her heart. I broke the cardinal rule of matchmaking, asking for emotion. I look away and say quietly, "I don't like the shade, I get cold. I don't want to rest in the shade. I want to bask in warm sunshine. I want to argue, laugh, and mess around with her. I want her to love me passionately, if clumsily. The dense shade covers the sun, but I long for its warmth." She drops Eric home first. Then the car stops outside my place. We're breaking up. The dampness from outside seeps into my eyes. It's misty out there as I say these words. She grabs my arm, not letting me out of the car, insisting on a reason. We met through a matchmaker, dated for 3 years, set a wedding date. Everything was falling into place, just one step away. She wants a reasonable, logical reason. I ask her, "Do you think compatibility or love matters more?" She doesn't hesitate. Compatibility. My nose tingles suddenly, voice catching. Why can't they both matter? I read somewhere, persistent happiness and intense love can't coexist. Love never lets you think straight. She gets what I'm saying but has no answer. Silence is all she's got. So I answer for her. Love makes you lose your mind, while marriage seeks stability. Stella, I despise your rationality, and I loathe my own suitability. I step out, walking towards my door. Suddenly, I remember the time he tried to break up. He hadn't gotten 5 steps before she'd wrapped him in a hug from behind, pleading with him to stay. He once wrote on social media, "Someone truly in love won't let you walk away easily." I slow my pace, taking one small step after another. The journey to my door felt like a lifetime. But I walked a lifetime without a hitch. The next evening, I went to a friend's gathering. I lost several games, my mind elsewhere. Couldn't drink anymore, so I chose truth instead of dare. A friend asks, "What was your 18th birthday wish?" I lower my gaze, filling my glass again. Before I can take a swig, a friend intercepts. "Hey, no more drinking. You chose truth. You gotta be honest or else lightning." The room's filled with old Cantonese songs, lyrics flowing softly. Waiting doesn't suit you, but joy does. Ask who you like, you can say love, but you fear it hurts. I remember chasing after her shadow all through high school. Remember our first college year. She'd gotten a boyfriend in another city. After that, seeing anyone who vaguely resembled her always made my eyes sting. Her shadow became my endless affliction. When we met again, I finally got the courage to approach her. That day, I intentionally went to the wrong room, believing she was the right one. I'd crushed on her for years, knew all her likes and dislikes. I went out of my way to please her. On the second date, an uncle from her hospital ward introduced us. When asked what I was looking for, every condition pointed to her. So there she was, standing before me, the only one I wanted. Finally, I heard my own broken sobs in the room. My 18th birthday wish was that Stella would see me. Later, she did see me. She saw me, but she didn't see me in her eyes. Hungover, my head aches terribly. I brewed some tea, the same hangover cure I'd make for Stella when she drank too much with friends. Back then, when I brought her home and made her some tea, she'd feel apologetic. "I should probably quit drinking, always troubling you." I'd say, "It's okay, I don't mind at all." I imagined brewing her tea forever. Now I make a cup for myself. Her message waits on my phone, her name tightening my chest. It read, "If you want to take back the breakup, you can anytime. I don't mind. But if you're sure, let me break the news to our parents." She wanted to take all the blame herself. Calling off the engagement was a big deal. A bunch of problems followed. The hotel, honeymoon, wedding photos. Losing deposits was one thing, but dealing with my parents was the real issue. I made the decision, so there was no reason to push her forward to take the heat. So I replied to her, "I'll talk to them myself. We're ending the engagement, I'll handle all the losses." After a while, she replied, "Joshua, I don't care about that stuff. You don't need to." She's always so gentle. At the start, her gentleness felt like waves crashing on my heart. Later, when I was in it, those waves felt cold and hard. During breakfast, my last memory before blacking out hit me. Last night, a friend saw me completely hammered, crying my eyes out, and tried to call Stella from my phone. I sluggishly stopped him. "Don't call her, we broke up." Word spread fast, and soon my buddy Billy called me. His first question was, "Are you ready to let go?" We sat together in high school for years. He always saw through me. On our graduation day, he took a photo with Stella in the background. That was my first picture with her. I was making a peace sign in front, she was walking by in the background. Just a glimpse, but I treasured it. Billy said that was his graduation gift for me. Now he said, with a bit of regret, that the wedding gift he prepared couldn't be given. I tried figuring out what it was, but realized it didn't matter anymore. I told my parents about my decision. Mom jumped up from the couch. "Don't you know, a woman like Stella is a rare find. If you let her go, someone else will snatch her up in no time. You're almost 30, what are you thinking?" Silently, my dad stepped in, nudging my chatty mom towards the kitchen. Through the sound of the exhaust fan, I heard my dad sigh faintly. He said, "That box of nuts is what our son brought back last time Stella bought it. They've been together 3 years, and she still doesn't remember he doesn't eat these. I'd say this breakup is for the best." After getting past my parents, Stella and I sorted out the rest. I returned to my single life. Life was calm, and somehow my heart felt more at ease. What's it like being with someone you've had a crush on for years? It felt like being in a tiny boat on a vast ocean. I was anxious, constantly worried she'd leave. I clung to my little boat, terrified it'd capsize at any moment. Now that the storm finally wrecked the boat, I actually feel calm. Stella occasionally appears in my list of likes, but we haven't seen each other since. We both went back to our own paths. I threw myself into work, living earnestly. Life rushed forward like waves. In a flash, half a year had passed. I ran into Stella on the street. Eric had her arm linked in his. She was smiling, strolling with him. I wasn't too surprised. They still had a place for each other, so getting back together made sense. There was a small ache in my heart. But I'm relieved. I'm glad I let go in time. She never truly smiled in those 3 years with me. At least now she's genuinely happy. They didn't see me. I looked away and kept walking. Those 3 years will fade into the vast expanse of her life. I'll slowly forget the length of her shadow. Another month went by. I went to court in City C and ran into my college classmate Helen. She greeted me, Joshua, long time no see. Coincidentally, she was the opposing lawyer. The trial was in a tiny room, with the plaintiffs' and defendants' tables practically touching. Helen whispered a joke about the space, close enough to throw punches. She was right. During the trial, the defendant lunged at the plaintiff. In the chaos, the defendant almost hit me, but Helen swiftly held them back. Afterwards, as lawyers on opposing sides, we both got an earful from the judge. She sighed, "Must have sinned in a past life to study law in this one." I couldn't help but laugh as I followed her. She stopped and looked back. "Joshua, seeing my back now doesn't make you blush, does it?" Helen was the girl in college whose silhouette reminded me of Stella. One day in freshman year, Helen walked ahead of me. I dazedly followed her. She occasionally glanced back, her eyes red, with a puzzled look. We weren't in the same class, so we didn't know each other. Taking the same route to the dorms, initially, she didn't think much of it. Until a few days later, with another girl, they suddenly turned towards the basketball court. At the entrance, they stopped. The girl pointed at me, crowding behind. "See? I told you he was following you." Helen looked shocked. That was our first proper introduction. Later, when I told her the truth, she marveled at the photo of Stella. They do look alike. Helen and Stella were similar in height and build, even in the way they walked. But Stella was gentle and calm, whereas Helen was lively and outgoing. They were completely different people. Over time, I grew closer to Helen. When I daydreamed looking at her back, she'd call out, "Joshua, don't love someone who just leaves you with their back. Love someone who faces you." Before I left, Helen treated me to a meal as a host should. "I heard you're getting married soon. Congrats on making it happen." Helen had pursued me in sophomore year, but I couldn't make room for anyone, even her, knowing I couldn't let go of who already filled my heart. Later, Helen stepped back into the role of a friend. Casually, I said, "The wedding's off, we broke up." She paused, raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask why. We said goodbye in front of the station. As I turned to leave, she called out to me, "Joshua, I used to think I was too late, but maybe now I'm right on time. Can we give it a try?" I turned back and smiled at her. "We're almost 30, Helen. Can we handle a long-distance relationship? It doesn't seem realistic." Sitting in the waiting hall, I remembered asking Stella about the right timing and being in love. I was picky with love when it came to Stella, yet rejected Helen under the guise of right timing. How many detours do we have to take in life, and how many wrong turns before we find a way to balance this question? Half a month later, Helen personally brought the answer to me. That morning, I walked into the law firm as usual. Passing by the office next door, I saw Helen sitting behind a desk. She had switched jobs to join my firm, relocating her entire life to my city. I always thought changing cities for someone was a wild thing you do when you're young. She made this bold move at a time when most people look for stability, indicating that she didn't plan on turning back. I said, "Helen, you must be crazy." She came prepared with an answer. "Joshua, I'm not here to force you to decide. Approaching you slowly is my sincerity, but whether you accept it is your choice. If you never fall for me, then feel free to string me along forever." Back in college, She told me not to love someone who only shows you their back. Love someone who runs towards you. She said it and she did it. Suddenly, the dilemma of the right timing versus love didn't seem so tricky after all. Because love conquers all. What seemed unsolvable for Stella, Helen handled with ease. At that moment, my heart, that had been stagnant for a long time, was stirred. It was my turn to repay the hospitality and invite her out for dinner. The server led us to our seats. After sitting down, I noticed Stella and Eric at the table next to ours. Stella greeted first. "Long time no see, Joshua." Eric gave me a smile. "What a coincidence. Is she your girlfriend?" Helen, always outgoing, chimed in. "Not yet. I'm still pursuing him." Stella glanced at her, her expression slightly shifting. As we started eating, Stella got a call. Her expression changed suddenly. "Grandma is missing. Let's skip dinner and go look for her." Eric stopped her. "She's just out for a walk. You're overreacting." Stella frowned, clearly annoyed. "My grandma has Alzheimer's. Did you forget?" Eric had indeed forgotten and awkwardly withdrew his hand. I remembered something and stopped Stella. "She likely has the smartwatch with her. Check the app." That watch, which I had bought for her grandma, had a GPS feature designed for seniors who tend to wander off. Stella quickly checked and pinpointed her grandma's location through the app. She promptly got up, giving me a grateful glance. "Thank you, Joshua." As they headed out, I happened to be going to the restroom and overheard Eric saying, "Doesn't his friend sort of resemble you from behind?" She paused before responding. "Really? I didn't notice." After dinner, I accompanied Helen to a supermarket. She had just moved in and needed to stock up on things. The store was running a promotion offering a chance to enter a raffle with a certain purchase amount. Helen bought a huge bag full, securing 3 raffle chances. The first 2 were just thank you for participating. She gave me the 3rd chance and, lucky me, I won a grand prize trip for 2 to Turkey. Labor Day was around the corner, so Helen suggested, "Joshua, let's take the trip together." Since the airfare and hotel were free, I definitely wasn't going to refuse. Later that night, I received a message from Stella. "Grandma's been found. She missed seeing you and went looking for you. Is she all right?" "Yes, just a bit shaken. I'll visit her in a few days." When I visited Stella's grandma, Stella happened to be there too. Her grandma had forgotten about our broken engagement and affectionately called me her grandson-in-law, holding my hand warmly. Not wanting to upset her, I played along. As I was leaving, Stella asked if I had time for a meal, wanting to thank me for helping with her grandma. I shook my head and said, "I'm going to Turkey with a friend." Stella blinked, clearly hit with a memory. "With the friend we saw at dinner last time?" Seeing me nod, she seemed on the verge of saying more but swallowed her words, simply smiling. "Have a great trip." "Thank you." Helen and I spent 5 days in Turkey. She was a wonderful travel companion, always taking care of me. In Istanbul, we visited the Museum of Innocence. I'd read the book long ago but had never set foot in the actual museum. Inside was a pale yellow wall with 4,213 cigarette butts smoked by the character. Each one was preserved by the male lead with annotations. Seeing me get teary, Helen teased, "You're such a softie. If I hoarded so many of your things, wouldn't you call me a creep?" I wouldn't. I'd be completely touched. In Cappadocia, just as dawn broke, we set off to ride a hot air balloon. Hundreds of balloons took flight. From the rising balloon, I took in the fairy tale-like landscape of Cappadocia. In this lunar-like part of the world, she played a video for me. It was filled with numerous photos she'd secretly taken of me trailing behind her. Helen moved closer and said, "Joshua, I have my own Museum of Innocence. I've been waiting for someone, waiting for the day he stops chasing after shadows." Back then, I assumed she was just gaming on her phone, not realizing she was capturing moments of me with the front camera. In those days when I was preoccupied with someone else's retreating silhouette, someone had been waiting, purposefully slowing down her steps for me. There was a haze before my eyes. "You creep, taking all those ugly pictures of me. You're being a bit of a hypocrite picking on me because I never won a Nobel Prize." The flight back home is almost 11 hours long. I woke up from a deep sleep with sudden violent turbulence. After some continuous shaking, the plane suddenly started to rock up and down, like it might fall apart any second in midair. Helen and I exchanged a glance, realizing something was really wrong. Many passengers started pulling out their phones to type goodbyes. The whole cabin was tense like crazy. I turned on my phone, fingers trembling, and sent Billy a farewell message. Considering my dad's high blood pressure, I didn't dare send it directly to them. If things went south, Billy would pass it on for me. It was late back home, so he was probably asleep and didn't see it or reply. Suddenly, the plane was pulled up quickly. Clouds smashed heavily against the window next to me. Helen gripped my cold hand. I held back, clutching it like a lifeline. Amidst all that, she softly asked me, "Joshua, can we be together?" The next second, the plane took a dramatic plunge. I closed my eyes and heard myself say, "Okay." Helen and I walked out of the airport hand in hand. I didn't expect to see Stella here. It was 5 a.m. She stood in the crowd of people waiting, looking around anxiously, like she'd been there for a while. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up. She snapped out of it and glanced at Helen and me holding hands. I couldn't read the emotion in her eyes. I walked up to her. She lifted her hand slightly, as if to hug me, but realized it wouldn't be right and let it fall. I heard her raspy voice, "I'm just glad you're okay." It seemed like she had more to say. I asked Helen to head to the parking lot to get the car. She nodded, took my suitcase, and shot a look at Stella before walking away. Once she was gone, Stella asked, "Joshua, why didn't you ever tell me?" I was confused. Then I saw the video Billy sent her, and it all made sense. The video was a log of my long-hidden crush. Billy had taken countless pictures and videos, me walking silently behind Stella, her name scribbled all over my notebook. I told Billy when my crush finally blossomed. There was even a video of me drunk, confessing my true feelings, secretly recorded by a friend months ago. All those moments painted a vivid picture of my silent infatuation. That was supposed to be Billy's wedding gift to me. My eyes felt warm, but it wasn't because of Stella. I glanced at my phone and saw his reply, "Joshua, don't you dare have anything happen to you. It's all Stella's fault. Otherwise you wouldn't be on that flight." What was meant as a wedding gift turned into a form of retaliation against Stella. He told her about the plane incident. He wanted to hurt her, to make sure she couldn't be at peace if I didn't land safely. I shut off the video and looked at Stella. I used to pretend to unintentionally get closer to her, hiding that part of my youth. If it wasn't mutual, what good was my unrequited love to her? I never meant to bind her with it. This was originally meant as my wedding gift, but since there's no wedding now, there was no need for you to know. Sorry for disturbing you in the middle of the night. Her eyes stayed on me. "Joshua, we can't call it a disturbance. I never knew you cared all this time. If only I'd known earlier. Maybe." My phone suddenly rang, interrupting her. It was Helen calling. Just as I was about to answer, Stella grabbed my wrist. She suddenly blurted, "I broke up with him." She had been tangled with Eric for years, only to end with nothing. "You don't have to tell me." Her eyes were deep. She'd never looked at me like this before. "Joshua, could you not go with her?" I used to wish she'd get jealous, hoping she might care a little more. But her heart always seemed untouched, like an unmovable mountain. Now, without the position to show jealousy or interrogate, she finally cared. Life never goes as planned. She brought the winter coat I longed for in the early spring, but I had already moved on light-footed. I pulled my hand from hers. I told her, "I'm with her now. Stella, just go back." The next time I saw Stella was at the high school anniversary a week later. Walking through the familiar campus, I ran into her. She stood atop the spiral stairs. Our eyes met. It instantly reminded me of the first day I saw her back in sophomore year. It was also below this very staircase. I was wearing a hand-me-down coat from my cousin, which Mom insisted I wore to save money. Passing under the stairs, I heard a cluster of giggles from above. Looking back, I saw Stella and a group of girls standing on the steps. One of them said, "Stella, look, that boy's coat is the same as yours." Haha, my face turned crimson. Stella smiled and stood up for me. Yes, they're unisex. Haven't you seen that? He wears it better than I do. Come on, class time. That day, Stella was like a light shining into my heart. For years, it never faded. Until I met my Sisyphus. She finally remembered, her eyes shifting slightly. Joshua, we've known each other since sophomore year after all. Turns out it was from way back. The school anniversary always featured a fireworks show. The field was packed. I watched the fireworks bloom, unable to resist snapping some photos to send to Helen. Under the glittering night sky, Stella's low voice came from beside me. Your favorite author isn't Yasunari Kawabata. It's Gabriel Garcia Marquez. You don't like fishing, you like photography. More than Nolan, you prefer Spielberg's films. You don't like spicy food and you're allergic to nuts. I'll keep these things in my heart from now on, Joshua. Let me come to you instead. Okay? She ended the engagement and the relationship, yet she finally tried to come towards me. Fireworks filled the night sky. Stella, did you see that firework? Spelled out our school name. She looked up, but the firework had already disappeared without a trace. Too late, I missed it. You should have looked up sooner. She turned to me, eyes filled with words she couldn't say. Her smile was bittersweet. After the event, Stella offered to drive me home. I pointed to the car by the school gate. Helen was waiting by it. Stella's eyes dimmed. I got in and watched Stella walk away. I've seen her back countless times, but this was the first it looked so lonely. Her steps were usually quiet and steady, but today, they were slow. I watched her move ahead, step by heavy step. That silhouette faded into the evening breeze. 18-year-old Stella, in her white dress, was the bright moonlight of my youth. At 28, Stella finally stepped out of that moonlight and out of my life. The woman next to me wasn't pleased. Her words carried a hint of sarcasm. Winning the lottery but losing the ticket. How's that feel? I chuckled. Never won, wouldn't know. But you need to wash the car, there's a sour smell. She glanced at the rearview mirror, at the fancy car behind us, maybe freshly washed. Thinking about getting a new ride? I quietly took her hand, lacing my fingers through hers. The night breeze, carrying a hint of flowers, blew through the car. She smirked, finally silent. We've been insecure, worn down. The timid crush hides feelings deep. Fireworks at 18 silently died inside. Later, I wore my suit and tie, yet I arrived when spring hadn't. No matter. Endure the harsh winter, and we'll welcome a brilliant spring. In that spring, someone's there to watch the sunset and stars with you. Stella's epilogue. When Joshua asked me that question, I knew it was a subtle accusation. With me, he carried endless grievances. So when Joshua left, I had no reason to stop him. I couldn't give him what he wanted. How could I make him stay? I thought Joshua was like a cup of warm water, bland and gentle, yet essential. Before he suggested breaking up, I was the one he saw marrying. I figured sticking with warm water for life couldn't be bad. After we split, I got back with Eric, but this time I was more worn out. Eric loved big, too big. I kept seeking proof of my love in numerous ways, but what he gave never felt enough. I could never fill his gaps. History repeated, leaving us both exhausted. I finally cut ties with him. When I lashed out at Eric, a calm face flashed in my mind. The day Joshua and I split, he didn't blame me at all. Even when he cried, he held back any sound. I left Eric, but for some reason, all I thought of was Joshua. When I got a video from Joshua's best friend, I couldn't even process it before he told me that Joshua's plane had an incident. I raced to the airport. He came back safe, holding another woman's hand. Felt like a storm poured into my heart. The day I confirmed my feelings, I lost him for good. I remember him saying he wanted to see the school fireworks again. So I went, just hoping to run into him. Under the sky of fireworks, I tried to reclaim our story. He just said, "You should have looked up sooner." I couldn't hold back my regret. My timing was always wrong, always one step too late. I watched him get in that car, moving farther away from me. I saw him glance at the person beside him, smiling. I remembered those 3 years he smiled at me like that. But during those years, my eyes never saw him. Now I wanted a drink. I went to a store and bought a bottle of the wine I used to drink all the time. One sip and it just wasn't the same. I wanted something milder, but the clerk said they were out. Standing on the street, I heard music from a nearby store. The scariest thing is loving too late. Just 1 second and words become history. So easy to miss. Love too late. How could I know he couldn't wait? I drank the old wine, tears choked back. I twisted the cap back on and tossed it into the trash. As I turned to get in my car, a sense of emptiness washed over me.